Today, we're cracking open one of Edgar Allan Poe's darkest, most disturbing tales, The Black Cat. But this isn't just a simple retelling. No, we're treating this story like a psychological case file. We are going to conduct a full autopsy on the mind of its narrator. So let's start with this absolutely chilling confession from the man himself. He's not just telling us what he did, he's laying out a whole theory of human nature. He's basically saying that sometimes we do things wrong for no other reason than knowing we shouldn't. And that right there, that's our way into his completely fractured mind. And really, this is the central question of our entire investigation. Are we dealing with some kind of demonic cat and ghostly happenings? Or are these just the projections of a man's own inner demons? We're going to make the case it's all in his head. Okay, so let's get into it. For this explainer, our subject is the narrator. This is a man who claims he used to be gentle, loving, and kind. But the story he tells us is a terrifying nosedive into rage, madness, and ultimately murder. And just to be super clear, we're not just going to walk you through the plot. You can read the story for that. What we're doing is sifting through his words, his actions, and his excuses to understand the why. We're on the hunt for the psychological evidence that explains his total collapse. Our investigation kicks off with the first big clue the narrator hands us on a silver platter: alcohol. He points right to it as the trigger for his transformation. But what part did it really play? I mean, the contrast is just, wow. It's like night and day. On one side, you have the man he claims he was, gentle, kind, loved animals. On the other, you have what he became: irrational, violent, cruel to everyone around him, even his pets. Alcohol is the clear dividing line here, the thing that seems to have split his personality right down the middle. And this is absolutely crucial. Alcohol wasn't the source of the evil inside him. It was just the thing that let it out. Think of it like this. The monster was already there, but it was in a cage. Alcohol just corroded the bars of that cage, his inhibitions, his rational control, and unleashed the darkness that was already lurking deep down. So let's see how this all starts to spiral. We're going to move on to the narrator's own perception of things, because he keeps telling us over and over that he's sane, even as his version of reality becomes completely unreliable and, frankly, unbelievable. And right here, the gap between what he says and what he does becomes a canyon. Mutilating a pet he supposedly loves, murdering his wife, seeing a gallows, a literal gallows in the fur of a cat. These are not the actions of a sane person. Yet he keeps insisting he is, trying to explain it all away. He's so deep in self-delusion, he even starts adopting his wife's old superstitions to justify his own paranoia. And this brings us right to the heart of our analysis: the cat. The black cat in this story isn't just an animal. Oh no. It becomes a powerful symbol, a living, breathing screen onto which the narrator projects everything that's going on inside his head. To really get this, we've got to quickly touch on a psychological concept called repression. It's basically when we have feelings that are just too much to handle, like crippling guilt or self-hatred, so our brain shoves them down into our unconscious, hoping they'll just go away. But here's the thing. Those feelings don't disappear, and that's where projection comes in. It's a defense mechanism. Instead of facing our own dark thoughts, our brain finds it easier to pin them on someone or something else. So let's trace this chain reaction. First, the narrator does something awful and feels this crushing weight of guilt. He can't live with it, so he represses it, pushes it down. But that buried guilt needs to go somewhere, so he projects it onto the cat. And all of a sudden, the cat isn't just a pet anymore. In his mind, it's the living, breathing symbol of his own sin. And you know, if we put on our Freudian hats for a second, we can see some classic symptoms here. He displaces his self-hatred onto the cat. He's in complete denial about his own madness. And then there's this really fascinating idea of a death drive, a subconscious desire to self-destruct, which perfectly explains his sloppy behavior at the end. It's like a part of him wanted to be caught. This all leads us to the explosive climax of the story and to our final verdict. This is the moment where all that repression and projection just comes crashing down spectacularly. I mean, just think about this action: walling up a body. It's a literal act of repression, but it's also deeply symbolic. He's trying to physically entomb his crime, to hide his guilt behind a wall of bricks, exactly like he's been trying to hide it behind a wall in his own mind. And then, right at the moment he feels the most confident, the most sure he's gotten away with it, He hears that sound. And just listen to how he describes it. It's not a cat's meow. It is the cry of a soul in hell. Now, whose soul do you think he's really talking about? Sure, the story tells us the sound came from the cat. But if we're looking at this psychologically, that cry is the narrator's own conscience. It's erupting from behind that wall he built in his mind. It's the part of himself he tried to bury, now screaming to be heard. And the lesson is clear. In the end, repression always fails. The truth always finds a way out. So why does this story from the 1800s still hit so hard? It's because it's a perfect case study of the human mind. It shows us a timeless, terrifying truth. You cannot run from yourself. The parts of you that you deny, the guilt you try to suppress, it doesn't just go away. It festers. And eventually, it will find a way out, usually in the most destructive way you can imagine. And that leaves us with one final thought. Poe used a black cat as the mirror for his narrator's soul. So it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What are our black cats? What are the uncomfortable truths, the parts of ourselves that we project onto other people, that we just refuse to see in our own reflection?